Well, hello there everybody. I'm Murray Frost and today I want to learn how to write good story for your filmmaking. What should you avoid and how can you improve your workflow? Okay, so one of the biggest things that people run into is writer's block. This is a common thing and everybody runs into it, even the best of the best. How do you get around it? Well, a lot of the time I just give it some time. Maybe give it even a week. Just let some time run through it. Maybe you just ran out of ideas and you need some more inspiration. You know, I can find the inspiration from so many random things. Maybe I'm just going about my usual day, or I'm driving to work and I see something on the side of the road that gives me an idea. And a lot of people also struggle with finding ideas, and sometimes they just force it out of themselves and try and find something where there's nothing. You know, just give it some time and, you know, it might work out by itself. A lot of the times, in fact, a lot of filmmakers that have come up with really good ideas, it happens by accident. Another great way to improve your story writing is listen to a soundtrack that is very relatable to your story. I know that when I was writing I Love You More, I was listening to some slow melodic soundtracks that would kind of either soothe me or kind of cause me to feel a little sad, or you know, something like that, because it was a sad film. So I wanted to match that feeling with some music. I plugged earphones in sometimes and I just kind of plowed away at this film, and I was just listening to music related to the story whilst I was writing the story, and it gave me a lot of inspiration and it kind of helped me feel the mood of what I was writing, and it kind of just brought out this emotion. And I mean, granted, there are a lot of people that can't study or work or do anything like that with music in their ears. That's fine. Give it a go though if you haven't tried it before. I'd try to not have music with lyrics in them, because then I do get distracted, but it might also break the mood. It depends what kind of song you're listening to though. But try to do it without any lyrics in the songs. It kind of just helps you focus on the story and kind of give that emotion, because in the final film usually you're going to have music without lyrics, and you kind of want to match that up with whilst you are writing, because you probably won't have lyrics in the music. And you know, sometimes it's just like grab the rule book and throw it away, you know, because there's a lot of rules you can break in filmmaking. It's not what rules can you follow, it's what rules can you break, and there is balance to that. Be careful, but don't follow every single rule in the book. Sometimes it's unique to every story and unique to every filmmaker. Everyone has their specific way of doing it. And so just experiment and, you know, just do nothing for a time if you can't figure out what to do. Sometimes inspiration can come from the randomest place. Also, a lot of people want to rush the film process, or specifically writing. They don't spend as much time as they should on writing. A lot of the time people are writing the short film or even a feature film, and they go through the whole process really quickly and they're just so excited about it, or maybe they just don't really like writing as much. They prefer to actually make the film, and then they neglect the writing process and they kind of go right into shooting, and then they run into a lot of things where they didn't see before, and then there's some holes in the story. For example, my short film I Love You More, I wrote it in about 3 or 4 days and then shot it in a week and a half. The story had some holes in it. It was a decent story, but it could have done better. I should have done better, but I was restricted by time. So don't let yourself be restricted by time if possible. Sometimes you're entering a feature film into a competition, or I mean a short film into a competition, and you might just have time restrictions, and that's fine. But wherever you can, find the time for your writing process. It's going to improve your filmmaking a lot. And a lot of the time, once people finish their film, they go out and shoot it right away. Give it some time. Let it rest for a while. Just let the idea percolate in your head. Don't just go out and shoot it straight away, because sometimes you might think, oh, I got a better idea about how this guy should die, or you know, some example. But don't shoot it right away. Give it some time. And also, once you've written it, you might find that the next day after you've slept on it, you might find something better to do, and you might find a way to improve it. And that's the same way once you finish your story, and then, you know, give it a week or two, and come back to it and look at it and see what you can improve. Because usually there is something that we either forgotten, or maybe we found some new inspiration, or, you know, a lot of the time I would also ask my family, hey, what do you think of this? Or do you have some great input or something like that? And maybe you even know a writer. Great, get them to look at your story and ask them to critique it for you. See what holes they find. Or maybe there's some kind of unrealistic dialogue that you put in, maybe you didn't notice, or things like that. And beware of your weaknesses, because there's specific parts in a story that you can write and you can forget about certain things, or you have certain weaknesses. For example, maybe you do well with action, but you can't do dialogue very well. I know that I can describe things and do a lot of abstract stuff, but my dialogue can be a little weak sometimes. And that's where collaborations can really work, is asking others to do your dialogue for you, whether it's paying or free, whatever, but ask people to help you with things that you struggle with. I know for me, I struggle with dialogue sometimes, so I might ask my mom, hey, can you help me with how people will say things, and how do they interact with each other, things like that. And remember, it just takes time, to write a good story. It takes time. A lot of feature films that people write and shoot, usually the pre-production process takes years. It can take years. And I understand that a lot of people don't really have a year to write their short film. That's fine. I've been writing my short film for about a year now, and I've been trying not to rush it, but at the same time, I've kind of neglected it a little bit in the last 2 months. Now, you might get these like streaks of just intenseness, and you just write and write, and you just can't keep up with your mind. You just keep writing and writing, and that's great. Use that to your advantage. In those times, just sit down and plow away at this story and just write it, and just get all the information out there. Just chuck it all in. It doesn't even have to be ordered. You just want to get it out there because you don't want to forget, because often those are the most special moments that you can use to your advantage to write short films or feature films or whatever kind of thing you're writing. But use that to your advantage, because that is the time where your mind is completely racing and you're going through a whole bunch of things, and usually that's when you come up with some really great ideas. I know that that's what happened with me when I was writing my short film, and a lot of great stuff came out of it. Now, granted, there are a lot of things as well that you have to be aware of. Since you're writing right off the fly and you're just chucking your stuff on, you can get quite a few things muddled up, and the story could be mixed up, so just be careful of that. But usually that's one of the best times to write, is when your mind is racing and you're trying to keep up with your mind. Now, one thing to watch out for is the slacker. Everyone has a slacker in themselves, or maybe you want to call it the procrastinator. Everyone has it, and a lot of the time people just put off their films and say, you know what, I'm going to get back to this later. And usually it doesn't happen that way. A lot of the time when people just forget their film and they say, I'll come back to it in a month or so once I'm ready, because I just don't want to do it right now. That's usually when they either forget the film or they just start losing interest, and it loses momentum and it kind of dies. And then later on they start a whole new film, and the whole process just happens all over again. And that's happened with me. I have so many unfinished stories, and I just don't want to go back to them. I've lost interest in them, and I just don't really care about them anymore. And so if you're really interested in that film at the time, keep at it, because if you lose the momentum on it, you're not going to really want to go back to it. It's really hard to rekindle that fire for writing the story. Now, on the other hand, you have to be careful of when your story isn't working. You have to be aware that some stories don't happen because they're just not good, or it's something else. It might depend on the situation, but be very careful, because you might be trying to push a film that's not going to work story-wise. And you just have to be aware that not all stories make it into the production process or even out onto the screen. And there's been some conversations of where people saying, it's better to write your story in ink or pen or whatever you want to do, just because it's a feel, it's a tangible thing that you can use to write your story. I think it's different for everyone. Some people like to type and some people like to write. Use your strength. I don't think you should use one specific thing. It's a lie that people like to put everyone in just one big box and say, this is how you do it. Follow the rules bit by bit, stay on the lines, that kind of thing. And I don't think that's how people should be. Everyone's different. Everyone learns this differently. Everyone writes differently. So use your strength. I like to write. However, I'm faster with a keyboard, and obviously there's less spelling errors. But, that's how I do it. I like to write it. But again, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of ink that I go through. And back to writer's block. If you're having writer's block, a lot of people are asking, how do I get out of this? They get stuck in this and they just can't move on with their film. Here are a couple tips for that. Number one, just give it some time, like I said before. Time between writing can sometimes help and kind of refresh your brain, give you some inspiration. But number two, try new locations. I mean, if you're on a computer, try on a laptop, go into a different location, go outside or the park or maybe the beach. I live like 5 minutes away from the beach, which is really cool. And so maybe it's distracting for you, I don't know, but give it a go. It might give you some inspiration, it might refresh your mind, kind of clear things out. So I hope you guys enjoyed that short rambling video. I'm gonna make more content on, acting, coaching, how to shoot your videos, how to edit them, how to make music for them, even if you're not a composer, things like that. So if you're interested in stuff like that, consider subscribing. And remember, learn, film, repeat. And until next time, keep smiling, keep shooting. And I'm out. Oh, jeez. Oh, my goodness. Oh boy.